In terms of activity, we just need to cover one more subject. A change of orientation, for instance, when rotating the telephone, involves a change of configuration. It's a change which causes a need to reload resources. In such a case, the activity which we've had so far is destroyed and created as a new activity from scratch. The onCreate method is called. Now let's assume a simple situation, namely that our second button is not for logging data, but simply increases the value present on the button. For that purpose, we'll need a counter with the default value of 0. Initially, we display the default value. Later on, we'll need access to the view, so let's transform it into a field. Now we can assign to it the current value of the counter using the setText method. We call this method each time the counter is increased. Let's start our application. This time, we'll run it in the emulator version 4.3 because the emulator in version 4.4 has a known bug which involves the lack of reaction to orientation changes. After launching the application and clicking the button, the value of the counter is increased as expected. Unfortunately, the moment we rotate the emulator, the counter value is zeroed. This is because the old activity was destroyed at this instant and a new one was created. In order to store data between configuration changes, we need to use the state saving mechanism. For this purpose, we need to overwrite the onSaveInstance state method. In this method, we get a bundle, that is mappings, where we can store certain data on the key value basis. Thanks to this, in our out state, we can save the counter under the count key. It's good to create a constant with a key. We already have a stored value, which has to be extracted in a certain place. The very obvious place seems to be the onRestoreInstanceState method. Inside, we receive the bundle we saved a moment ago. Now we can assign the value extracted from saved instance state. In order for the first value to be correctly displayed, we'll show it on our button. Let's start the application again. After increasing the counter value and rotating the emulator, the value 7 is still set on the button. Besides onRestoreInstanceState, we can also use the onCreate method itself. This method also produces saved instance state. With this, we can immediately get the value we're interested in. We just need to remember that saved instance state may be null if we start an activity for the first time. That is, if our activity was not started as a result of the configuration change. That is why we should remember about that and check whether saved instance state is different than null. The saved instance state mechanism is used even if we don't use it directly in the code. If in our activity we place, for instance, edit text, that is, the text field which we may introduce data to, the value which we enter here will be stored as long as we give an ID to the field. If we don't do this, the system won't be able to recognize which edit text we want to save the data to, so it won't even try to do so. It's a very useful mechanism, since configuration changes may take place very often. Now let's leave our test application and move on to start developing the Todo Expert application. It allows us to illustrate certain topics we're interested in.